Hello fun people, I'm Isaac Carlson, and now that we've had some distance on the conclusion of Tangled the series, and we've gotten to see the cast and crew receive much deserved recognition by earning 3 Emmys, I think it's time to talk about the Tangled spin-off that was the closest to being created. Let's talk about the rejected series known as Varian and the Seven Kingdoms. And of course, if you're new here and you're a bit of a Tangled fanatic like I am, then consider subscribing. Honestly, I just wish we had unlimited Tangled the series episodes to talk about. But truly, Varian and the Seven Kingdoms is as close as I think we'll ever get to a continuation of this story. This was a concept that was initially thought up by 2 storyboard artists who actually worked on Tangled the series. Together, Anna Lencioni and Caitlin Ritter, who is now a director on Monsters at Work, decided they wanted to continue Varian's story in a series of his own. In their minds, there was more to tell about the young alchemist who had fallen to darkness and had learned to get out of that through guidance from Rapunzel. They believed that he still deserved a story where he could grow into the man he wanted to become. On Caitlin's Tumblr, which I'll leave linked for you below, she shared concept art, drawings, and story descriptions on how they wanted to expand Varian's journey out into the world. Varian would leave Corona initially when he discovered an almanac that once belonged to his fearless and adventurous mother, who had disappeared and had been studying alchemy like him. They wanted to see Varian continue his adventures in alchemy through the Seven Kingdoms in order to learn the 7 alchemical laws and obtain forbidden knowledge. By completing his mother's work, Varian wanted to understand who he was. In each of the 7 kingdoms, Varian would be taught one of the 7 alchemical stages of transformation and would receive a totem. With all 7 totems acquired, Varian would be able to use them to reunite with his long-lost mother Ulla, who had been trapped by her former partner Danella long ago. On my podcast series Following Dreams, where I interviewed Caitlin Ritter, which will also be linked down below if you'd like to listen to the whole discussion, I got to hear from her about what she envisioned the series was going to mean for Varian.
Rapunzel got seasons 2 and 3 and, to sort of go out and explore, like, this is his time to do that. We wanted to age him up. We wanted to, have him really be treated as the adult he always tries to be treated as, and to really actually, earn that and achieve that for himself. So, that was just a perspective on that character we were excited to try to explore.
While Varian was continuing to attempt to master alchemy and save his mother, Danella was also meant to go after the totems to prevent Ulla's release, along with her beefy bodyguard. Danella would be a woman trying to find a way to access her former colleague's secrets, which would lead her to send the boy Hugo to infiltrate Varian's group to stop him and steal Ulla's research. Hugo was supposed to come from a technologically advanced yet economically divided kingdom. He would be a boy who lived like a criminal, stealing riches to fund his experiments so that he could live a more luxurious lifestyle. This older boy would embody what Varian thought he wanted to become, but eventually Hugo would learn to actually be more like Varian. Inevitably, Hugo was intended to betray Danella so that Varian could reach his mother. While Hugo had seen himself as someone who was above Varian, they would eventually learn to see each other as equals. Now, for me, Hugo's the type of character I think I would really need to see come to life to really appreciate, because those negative attributes would drive me crazy. It'd be so hard to see Varian get led astray, but I could absolutely see how Hugo's redemption and conflict would be something that was fascinating to see play out. In Varian's group, there would also be the young boy Yang, who was imagined as a sweet, accident-prone kid who came from a kingdom known for their glorious fireworks and pyrotechnics. His inventions then, of course, would explode or catch fire often, but ideally he wanted to rise above that. Yang was meant to be an overly enthusiastic boy like Varian had been in Corona, which would lead Varian to see him as a younger brother. And I love this character. He sounds so charming and fun, and I can just imagine all the great moments Varian and Yang could have together as Varian got to be a bit more of a mentor for someone else. There would also be Princess Nuru, who came from a kingdom plagued by cosmic disaster. With meteor showers constantly raining down on her home, her people were forced to constantly rebuild, which meant they were never able to thrive. Therefore, Nuru would be in search of a way to save her people, and along the journey she would be their navigator, skeptic, and diplomat. Nuru would be the one who was the most suspicious of Hugo and his antics, and I think it would be awesome to see a capable, pragmatic, and wise character like Nuru being with the group. She sounds like she would be the most grounded member. Oh, and of course, Rediger the raccoon would be by Varian's side, as well as Prometheus the donkey. And I have to say, I really think this sounds like a great cast who could have had some extremely compelling adventures. There was a lot to love in each one of these characters, and how they would have developed together, I think would have been something we all could have enjoyed. On the journey, we could have seen Hugo making fun of Varian for naming the element he discovered at the Corona Science Fair after Cassandra, and we may have seen Hugo throwing at Varian the "you'd be surprised what people will tell you for a cookie" line, which are some absolutely amazing callbacks to Tangled the series. We may have also seen Varian continuing to discover more elements and roasting Hugo in the process, calling the element Hugorium because it's ineffective and ruins everything. And Varian was meant to encounter his long-lost cousins, who were meant to be an entire family of people like him. Artificers, welders, engineers, who were all like-minded people to him, which would lead Varian to question his mission and what family meant to him. You can really tell that a lot of time and care was put into mapping out this story. And it was also kind of awesome that the creators of Tangled the series themselves encouraged this story to be told.
We planned out pretty much the whole thing start to finish, but we just did like 3 sample pages to show them like, oh, here's like what we were thinking, you know, and Chris and Ben had given us their blessing, you know, they knew very much about it, and had given us advice and feedback, and so yeah, they were super supportive of it.
But what about Varian's mother? Ola was meant to be someone who was a lot like Varian. Using the one painting we saw of her within Tangled the series, she was now going to be a field researcher who was brilliant, resourceful, and powerful. Beyond all of her similarities to Varian though, she was actually meant to be the one who tested him the most. In fact, Varian's mother was planned to be the villain of this new adventure. As soon as I saw anything about like Varian's mother and like a Varian adventure, I was like, ooh.
It's just the kind of things, you know, there's so much that you try to accomplish over the course of a show like that. There were so many, you know, especially with, right, like such a great cast of characters. You want to know everybody's. I would watch a Lance spinoff. I'd watch a Cat spinoff, Angry and Red. Like I would, any one of those characters, I want to know everything about them. And so that, yeah, that was just like, we attached to Varian and we were like, well, like we didn't really get to talk about Mom. Like what was the deal there? Like what could we do there? You know, we kind of lightly got into alchemy as it applies to his very polarized relationship with alchemy versus, you know, magic. Like what if we're in pursuit of alchemy, which sort of requires both, like what could that be like for his journey, you know? And yeah, the idea of his mother, I don't know how much you've read about like what our intention for the story really was, but the intention for his mother actually to sort of play like the villain role in that story came from Chris. It was his suggestion, actually, something we hadn't really considered, because we were just excited to meet Mom. And then he was like, you know, what if? Like, and we were like, cool. Like, to have the crazy plot twist.
Yeah, we weren't just going to have a Varian adventure out in the world that would culminate in him meeting Ulla. We were actually going to discover that Varian's darkness came from her, and that he would feel responsible for guiding her out of it. Varian was meant to take on mastering alchemy and redeem his lost mother.
Like the idea that dark streak in him is, I think is how he put it, like came from her, like was an interesting concept. And the idea, I think, moreover, that he's able to sort of like guide her through, you know, that evil to the other side, like with what he's learned, you know, having gone through it himself and having been changed by Rapunzel and having then tried to change Cassandra. Like I loved the kind of bookending that for him as a character, you know, as part of his journey. And yeah, you know, certainly kid's gone through it, right? Like
this type of story is exactly what I would have wanted from a Tangled the Series spinoff. The heart, the emotions, and the immersion into the lore and world were all there, but unfortunately the truth is that it just will likely never be brought to life in its entirety.
Ultimately what happened was, you know, if it's a Tangled thing, they want Rapunzel. That was sort of, and Varian's existence was really tied to Tangled. So I think they just felt like, is there enough of a following, a demographic? I know that there is for me to make it, right? But for Disney to invest, and we understand. So That was sort of why it didn't happen, but they loved it. I mean, they were super enthusiastic about what we pitched. They wanted us actually to remove him, and to sort of rebrand it, with like make it like an
Mm.
original character. And there was a version of that story that we could tell, absolutely. But I think Anna and I just felt so strongly connected to Varian that we were like, no, like this is his, his like coming of age.
Well, we could have gotten some type of comic book that appeared to be someone like Varian and felt like Tangled's world. The only way it could have been brought to life is if it abandoned the character who had inspired it. Unfortunately, Varian's connection with Tangled meant that without Rapunzel being highly bound to the tale, it just wouldn't be able to move forward, which I think is really sad. I think for the fans who really came to love Tangled the series, this sounds amazing. I would have loved to have seen this on Disney Channel, or even better, Disney Plus. If this comic series would have come out, I believe I would have absolutely read it week in and week out if it stuck with the high quality storytelling that we came to expect from the show. There was so much intrigue for me into the characters, the world, and the story. I would have loved to have seen Varian's story expanded because this really felt like an adventure that he deserved to go on. Now that his father was proud of him, I think it absolutely makes sense that Varian would want to push himself out into the world and come to grasp who he was beyond his kingdom. I kind of mentioned this in my discussion about Cassandra's destiny after the Tangled finale, but for the most part, I've just kind of tried to accept the fact that we will never learn anything else about all of these wonderful Tangled the series characters again. I highly doubt that we will ever learn more about Lance or Cassandra, which really bums me out sometimes. After watching these characters for so many years and making so many discussions about them, I became really invested in them, and I love these characters, including Varian. The truth is, though, Varian's story is probably over like all of the Tangled characters, but at least we have this idea of what Varian might have gone and done. Varian in the Seven Kingdoms might not be canon or fully developed, but now we have some type of concept of the people Varian could have met, the places he might have gone, the alchemy he could have learned, and the mother who might have pushed him to discover who he was meant to be. But let me know down below what your thoughts and theories are surrounding Varian in the Seven Kingdoms. Also, make sure to subscribe and click the beautiful bell, and then click on another magical video in the description or on the screen. Finally, as always, thanks for watching and have a magical day.